From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
One more corner pocket.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi.
And Corey Clark.
Wake up! What is up, everybody? It's Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Coming up on today's show, the Noles back in the top 5, practice observations from Tuesday, and Clemson down. What does it mean for the ACC and the path to the playoff? Wake Up Warchant is presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, Tallahassee, Florida. CPTallybar.com, the website, 2475 Appalachia Parkway, the physical address. Check it out. Lunch specials, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., only $8.99. On Wednesdays, it's chicken wings, 5 of them, and French fries for only $8.99. Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Great times always, cold beverages, great darts, great billiards, better people. Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Don't forget, tomorrow, bingo night at the CP, so go check it out. We are also presented by our great friends over at Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Shake it and take it. But go to vitaminenergy.com, use the promo code WARCHANTBOGO, WARCHANT B-O-G-O. Buy one item, get another item of equal or lesser value for absolutely free. How would one make it through a 4 a.m. Day of work, Corey, and then drive 5 hours back to Tallahassee, wake back up, go cover practice, film it, interviews, hit the gym, slay it in game night. Halo, new game type out there on game night for me and my boys, Corey. All my Halo guys out there know what it means. We went like 6-2-1 on the night. It's fantastic. How could I do all this? How could I do it all without?
Well, I mean, without vitamin energy, you couldn't.
Nope.
You couldn't.
Nope. So, shake it and take it. The focus got me dialed in. Get you dialed in. Go to vitaminenergy.com. Promo code WARCHANTBOGO. 5-star rating and review, please. Thumbs up. Subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube page, subscribe to warchant.com. It'll change your life. It'll be great. We'll be hanging out over at the Hotel Indigo pregame show festivities for this home opener, Florida State taking on Southern Miss. Corey Clark, how are you, friend?
I'm good, buddy. How are you doing?
Well, we cover a top 5 football team, Corey Clark. We're back.
Yeah. I felt like we did anyway, but we got confirmation of that on Tuesday, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Coaches dropped first. They had Florida State at number 5. Only Ohio State, Alabama, Michigan, and Georgia ahead of the Noles. Meanwhile, LSU dropped down to 14th. Clemson, 21st. And then the writers, which I feel like, maybe we should, since you're a writer, I'm not really a writer, maybe we should cite our guys in the industry a little bit more. But they've got the Noles at 4th. So if it all ended now and we went to a playoff, Florida State would be in it. They'd play your Bulldogs.
Right.
Georgia's 1, Michigan 2, Bama 3, Florida State 4 in the AP poll. This is about as good as you could hope for. I don't know, some folks might want Florida State to – I know some people voted them number 1. I think Brett McMurphy voted them number 1. I think Reese Davis said he was going to vote Florida State number 1. But this makes sense. I'm content with it. Your thoughts, Corey, on seeing the affirmation, confirmation, validation from the coaches and the writers on this Florida State team after one game?
Yeah, I mean, number one, as we all know, it doesn't matter here, September 6th. It doesn't really – oh, by the way, I guess it's Shanna's birthday today.
Oh.
So happy birthday, Shanna. I probably could text her too or call her, but I didn't realize it's her birthday. Yeah, but it doesn't matter the first week of the season, clearly. But I get the interest. I understand the interest. When you're a team that, if this was 1998, nobody would care. No Florida State fans would care, I mean. Or 2014 they would. But when you're used to being in the top 5, like Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia here recently, you're vying for position for November. But it is cool to see the validation and the confirmation of what you did on Sunday night rewarded, because I thought it was weird. Honestly, they were ranked behind like Penn State to start the season. But then again, I saw Florida State practice, and I just saw I don't know that people understood what they got in the portal. Now they do. To go along with what they brought back, and I think it's a cool time, man, to be a Florida State fan. I brought it up on headlines. I wrote about it after the game. I'm going to keep reiterating this, and y'all are going to get sick of it as long as this season keeps going on. But I don't care. This is the 2-year anniversary of Jacksonville State Week. It hasn't happened yet. We're still not a full 2 years from that game. But 2 years ago this week, coming off the Monday night Labor Day game, I think it was Monday night, maybe it was Sunday night, losing to Notre Dame in overtime. This is that following week. That was 2 years ago. And think about what you thought of the program you loved, the coach that you were bought in on after watching that Notre Dame game. And the program, the program you love, the stadium you love going to, all the history and tradition and all the good times you had cheering on this football team, and then you watch that night, and you watch that team lose that game, and then here you are 2 years later, and you've got a home game coming up with a much better team than Jacksonville State, and your team is number 4 in the country after that last year. That's 2 years ago. That's just it's just an incredible turnaround. I didn't know we were going to get back here. I hoped we would. I didn't think it would be this soon, and it reaffirms how much I'm going to try to enjoy this in the moment because it's fun. I mean, you look at our YouTube numbers, Aslan. You would think we're Tom Segura or Joe Rogan, like going through the roof. But I think Florida State fans are obviously very excited about this team, and it's not even from a professional standpoint. It's just like what it does for our business. But it's just like it's awesome to be able to talk about this and to live this again. Because I wasn't sure it was going to happen, and it hadn't happened with me and you yet on this show. And it's cool that we're talking about the number 4 team in the country.
Do you think that they were able to move and jump in front of some of these teams? You know, obviously LSU is ahead of them, so they're going to definitely at least jump up 1 spot. But they jumped 4 in the writers' poll, the AP poll, and they jumped 3 in the coaches' poll. I mean, does that really reflect like a sense that there's a belief that this is a genuine turnaround? Like, I don't want Florida State's back. I'm gonna joke around about that every now and then, but I truly think they are. But I mean, in one game. And I know it's a top 5 team, so like everyone's like, well, you should jump up. But these other teams that are ahead of you, when we're this early in the season, it's based on their roster, the way they've recruited, and their reputation here of late, right? So to be behind Alabama, Michigan, and Georgia, like I can understand that. I am totally fine with that. Like the fact that you're able to jump up numerous spots. I mean, does that reflect like a real true belief that other folks are starting to believe what we were able to watch for 15 spring practices and then what we saw in the preseason?
I mean, clearly, when you jump teams that won, I look at it. If they would have won like they did last year, I think they're 7th in the country. I'm talking about the way they beat LSU last year.
Yeah.
But they went on a 38-3 run, a 31-0 run in the second half. I mean, they dominated that team in the second half of that game, and I think that's when you're looking at it, and you're so early in the season, and you're like, well, yeah, clearly. I mistook Florida State. I should have ranked them a little bit higher, and you have a chance to make amends on that after seeing it in action in front of your face. It's not on paper. It's actually happening in front of you. You realize what this offense was going to be good anyway. And then you throw in those offensive line transfers, and you throw in Jaheim Bell and Keon Coleman. Oh, yikes. And I think the people that vote saw that and were like, and man, look, there wasn't a better performance in the country.
Yeah,
there just wasn't. So I get it, but yeah, I can also understand Alabama, Georgia, Michigan. Michigan's been to the playoff 2 years in a row and returned a ton of players. Georgia's Georgia, Alabama's Alabama. I get where you're kind of laying in the cut in number 4. But hey, maybe Alabama loses this week. You beat Southern Miss and you're in the top 3, man.
Practice observations. We got a couple questions left in the mailbag. We'll get to them on tomorrow's show. We have stuff to talk about today, so we'll talk about that sort of stuff. Somebody had pointed out, asking the mailbag, though, about, whether or not, or who, rather, does Keon Coleman look like. And Carlos Williams tweeted out Keon equals Anquan Bolden vibes. You pointed that out at practice. Maybe
I think it's the number. I think it's just the number.
Probably. I thought so, too. I really didn't pay all that much attention to practice because I was filming in and then I was getting everything uploaded so people could have something to watch during their early morning hours at the office. I did see period 3, thought it was quite crisp, and then I think now what I'm going to try to talk about every single day on the show now is just like that final play they run when they in the like period 12 or whatever before they would usually go inside to the IPF, but they stayed out for a few more periods than usual. But they usually run it inside the 5-yard line. There's just one single play after they've done some 11-on-11. It's a goal line, do or die, 4th down and goal play. I think this one was inside the 10. It was maybe on the 7-yard line. Offense scored because Jordan Travis is the quarterback for the Florida State Seminoles, and no one else would probably be able to stop it. Anything else? I don't want to say stood out to you, but what do you want to relay to the folks that happened at practice? I mean, there wasn't anything crazy, but just let them know we're out there and you're doing.
Yeah, no, I thought the offense won the day. Keon Coleman was, just unguardable again. And I will say this: I'm not trying to kill the kid because he caught everything else that I watched. But one of the first plays on 11-on-11, Johnny Wilson gets deep for what should be a 50-yard touchdown, perfect throw, and he dropped it right going over the goal line. So that's going to happen. Hey, get it out of the system. But he got open. That's half the battle. Got open, really good throw, but he came back and made more catches throughout practice. Thought Azarie had another good practice. I think he's a good player. I don't think it's, and I was thinking about this rewatching the game or some of the highlights from the game. Azarie got beat on like back-to-back 3rd downs. I believe it was the 3rd quarter. It might have been the 2nd quarter. I can't remember, but LSU beat him on back-to-back 3rd downs, where it was almost like, man, what are you going to do? It was a throw to Neighbors on a comeback when the ball is thrown as he's coming out of his break. Azarie's got good coverage. It's just, it's a better throw and a better route. And then he got beat. I don't even know if I want to call it beat. It was after Patrick Payton jumped off sides, that play, where it was going to be 3rd and 12 or 3rd and 11, and then it became 3rd and 6, and they threw an 8-yard pass to the tight end. And Azarie had him in coverage. I don't know what he graded out at, but I thought he played well. And I thought he came back and played even better in practice on Tuesday, and he's going to continue to get better. Also thought Cypress played well in that game, especially from what we had seen. Thought he played pretty well overall in that game and was fine in practice again too. I'm trying to think, no real highlights. Nothing that we could share anyway. Right. One-on-ones, Destin Hill hit a big one, like a 40-yarder. And Vandrevius, I think it was Vandrevius that ran right by Greedy Vance, like just blitzed past him, but the ball was overthrown. But other than that, it was the typical. Oh, and KJ Kirkland had an interception. Okay. In one-on-ones, like almost basically ran the route for Preston Daniel, got in front of him, was physical, and caught it and ran it into the end zone. So those were about the highlights from practice.
Very workmanlike day, though. I mean, short week for them. Maybe not.
But it seemed like a normal practice, didn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you kind of asked Coach Norvell about that after practice. Without explicitly saying that. Listen, it's an opponent that's probably fairly inferior to you, but coming off the short week, really big high of that victory. But they still went to work, and it seems like there's a maturity to note to kind of keep their heads down and power through, no matter what they're going to see, whether it's these poll numbers coming out or more people tweeting at them. Apparently, Jaheim's phone is blowing up about him running over LSU's defensive back. I guess he tagged him in an Instagram post, too, to let him know he knows his name. So, but yeah, I thought that was really, I won't say encouraging, but that's where I think so much of our confidence, Corey, probably came from this preseason, was the fact that obviously we saw the talent, but it just seemed like, man, they just said the right things. And so the talent obviously makes you believe the words that are coming out of their mouth much more so. But they seem like, they listen, I came back because I wanted to have one more year here. We know that we can do something special here. We can win a championship here. And to be able to do that, you need to be able to show up every single day, get 1% better, all that sort of stuff that Norvell preaches. And they did on Monday. Man, they came back on. They had a good day of practice when they know they have a team. They can beat up and name their score against USM.
USF, is that what you said?
USM.
Oh,
Southern
yeah. Is
Miss.
that what we call it? USM?
That's what we call them in Mississippi. We call them
okay,
Southern Miss.
I don't think I knew that. I just figured they were Southern Miss.
We like acronyms.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting game because it is, you're coming off a big win. You get home essentially Monday morning, and you play Saturday night. So at least it's not Saturday at noon. You get basically all that Saturday to get your body more and more prepared and get ready for that. And get ready for another. That game's gonna end at midnight. That's a crazy start time.
8:30. Good Lord.
crazy. But, hey, students sold out.
Yeah, shout out.
Now, they're not going to be there in the third quarter. So if Florida State, if they don't want to make sure it's not a game, I have a feeling the student section is going to be depleted by halftime because it'll be 10:30 on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
And you're a student in college, you're probably going to want to go do some student things. So hopefully Florida State takes care of business while the students are in the stadium. But good on them for selling it out. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that he said they've been preparing for this since the summer this week. And I think that means obviously they knew that they were losing a day of prep. And they were going to have to be – it was going to be sped up. It was going to be warp speed to get ready for this game. So they did a lot of game prep, I have to imagine, in the summer. Like they know about Frank Gore Jr. They know what Southern Miss runs, offensively, defensively. They broke down all the film well before the season started because they knew they'd have to have a game plan quicker than normal. They didn't have a Sunday like they normally do to get ready for this. So, yeah, look, but you're right. I thought it was very workmanlike. It was very still competitive. I was wondering what the practice would be like if they do the one-on-ones, if they would do 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s after such a tough practice in a short week. But they did. It looked to me like maybe a touch lighter. But to me, it looked exactly like it did last week and the week before. The team stuff, they had the special team stuff. Fitzmagic made both his kick. He had like a 43-yarder that landed on the roof of the IPF, like crushed it.
Woo.
Good to see, Ryan. Good to see that's in there. So yeah, I thought it was a practice, and it seemed like from Norvell's point of view, we'll see what he says after today's practice. But I think he liked that practice too, and I thought he was pretty pleased with what he saw overall from his players.
Yeah. B50 was saying, Fitzgerald, I see you. Attaboy. Kickoffs were fantastic and high. When they didn't have to kick deep, his field goals looked fantastic. Great work, Fitzmagic. The team regrouped at half, made adjustments. But he wanted to shout out Fitzgerald. So, yeah, there you go. There you go, Ryan. You were seen. You were heard by B50 there. Did you hear what Will Hall, the head football coach of Southern Miss, a.k.a. USM, had to say about Florida State and Mike Norvell? They go back a little bit. Will was his tight ends coach at Memphis, and I think Will might have actually worked with Alex Atkins in Tulane. They might have crossed paths down there too. Did you hear what he had to say, Corey? Or
I did. Yeah, I did. I didn't watch the whole press conference, but I saw the first couple minutes.
I'll play for the people at home that might. You probably saw it. We
By the way,
out everything. But
I just want to. Are you about to play it right now?
Yeah.
I just want to preface this that I love the accent.
Absolutely,
I love it. It reminds me of my covering prep football in the state of Georgia days. Yeah. This sounds like, and I'm not trying to denigrate the man.
Nope.
He did a fine job. He went to a bowl last year after the mess he took over. But it just reminded me so much of so many of the guys I talked to when I used to cover prep high school football in the great state of Georgia.
This is pure Amory, Mississippi. This is just this honed, refined in the great city of Amory, Mississippi. Head football coach Will Hall of Southern Miss talking about the matchup for his Golden Eagles this weekend in Tallahassee, taking on Florida State and Mike Norvell.
We played a tremendous opponent this week. I know y'all going to ask me about them. I mean, they're probably the best team I've ever coached against. I played Bama in 21, we did, and they played for the national title, and I think this team's a little better than them, because Bama was starting a true freshman quarterback at the time. He was really good, first-time draft pick. But this guy's special, and their skill guys are, and it's going to be a great challenge for us. It's a tremendous opportunity to go over there and represent our program the right way, and, in an elite opponent, in an elite venue, and to see how much we've grown since the last time we went over and played Bama in a situation like this. I think our guys are excited about it. With that, I'll open it up.
Yeah, I should have cut up even a longer one, but he just goes in and talking about how special Jordan Travis is, how dynamic they are out wide. Heady praise, man. He played against Bryce Young, true freshman year in Alabama, thinks this team is better. So there's another data point, everybody. So believe. Get off your chairs. Believe. Corey even, I think, wrote it out so well in the column to let you know, folks, where there's reasons to love this team and reasons to believe now. So, but yeah, Will Hall stamping on it. Can we be as Alabama? That's crazy. Better than Alabama. We're
better
back.
Than the 21 Alabama. Look, I think what you have to realize, and he talked about it a little bit. He even used the word old. Yeah. Like, they are old. Yeah. This is an old football team. Like, legitimately one of the oldest teams Certainly the oldest one I could remember at Florida State, one of the oldest college football teams other than BYU that I could ever remember. It's just filled with 22, 23-year-old guys. So it's not just that they're talented, and they've got some really special dudes at key positions, but they're old and experienced, and they've seen it all. So I think that's what makes it. They're probably not as talented as whoever was. I don't know who was on that 21 Alabama team. I know they had incredible receivers, and Bryce Young was awesome, and Will Anderson was awesome. But I don't know, like, overall how many NFL draft picks will come off that 21 Alabama team. I'm sure it'll be more than this Florida State team, all told. But this team probably, you could say when you watch them and what they did in that second half, you're not saying the talent is better, but man, you just can't replace and replicate experience like this. And I think that's what could maybe make this a special season and separate it from other really good teams in the country. It's just there's nobody they're going to play that's older than them. Mike, who's the youngest starter? Is it Destin Hill? Does he count as a starter? And he's been out of high school for 3 years. Yeah. He's draft eligible. Like literally isn't their whole starting 22 draft eligible?
Maybe as do we think Azarie? Well, no, because it's
Cypress,
Renardo, and Greedy. Yeah, that's your three cornerbacks. So I think so. Yeah, man. Because Kalen and Tatum and your front four, and your safeties obviously, and the offensive line we've talked about. Your receivers. Yeah. Wow.
So it's Jaheim. I mean, all these guys are graduates of like the 19 class or the 20 class. They are all 22 or 23 years old. Almost all of them. Bethune, Deloach, Renardo, Jarian, Greedy, Akeem. Shaheem might be the youngest guy on the team, and it's his third year here. The youngest guy in the two deep, I mean. Yeah. All the linemen are essentially, I think they're old enough to run for president. Like by the way, if we have an age limit to run, you have to be a certain age to run for president. Uh-huh. Should we not have an age limit on the other side of it?
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there, and that's not a political stance one way or the other, because we're about to have two 80-year-olds running against each other again. Yeah. Meanwhile, a 34-year-old can't do it, and none of y'all would have an 81-year-old coaching your football team. Not anyone listen to this show. It's just crazy. That's how our political world works. But anyway, that's ageism in another way, that you have to be 35 to run for president. But look, man, this is the oldest team that any of these other football teams have probably ever played. And it's not just old. It's old and good.
And strong, yeah.
That's a lethal combination. Or could be, potentially.
Oh, such a good segue. I could have gone there to the Clemson stuff. We'll get to it in a second, but let's follow up on Southern Miss by going over to mybookie.ag and using the promo code WARCHANT to get an instant cash deposit bonus. Florida State now favored by 31 points. The total is 53. So, yeah, like a 45-7 kind of, if it's 42-7, you're still
42-10, right? Isn't that about what they're looking at?
If they allow two scores, I'll be disappointed. But I don't know. Maybe the fact that Southern Miss's coach knows Mike. Mike knows Southern Miss's coach. They know what the other guy thinks they know, and maybe that'll make it a little bit muddy for a while. But I don't know. I'd be surprised if Southern Miss puts double digits on the board.
No, I was just saying I thought that's kind of what Vegas is predicting.
No, right?
Like a 41-10 type game.
Yeah. We'll see though. I think it'll be more like 45-7.
Okay.
That's the under, but then Florida State obviously covers there. Lots to pick from. We're in full throttle here. We'll talk about the other games. Obviously, you know about Texas taking on Alabama, Miami taking on A&M. All these games available over at mybookie.ag, where you can bet anything, anytime, anywhere. Just use that promo code WARCHANT for an instant cash deposit bonus. So, Corey, you had mentioned, you said the word lethal. I think you said lethal. Talk about this Florida State, just the combination of everything they have. I saw somebody, I think maybe Ingram fella for Battle's End had retweeted it. And, okay. Apparently Garrett Riley, when he took over at Clemson, said he was going to make the offense for the Tigers. It was going to be lethal simplicity is how he used to describe it.
I guess.
I
saw that too.
I didn't click on the story, but I saw the headline. I saw the tweet, the X. They did not bring their guts to Wallace Wade Stadium on Monday night. They fell to unranked Duke, who's now 21st in the Riders poll. really big bad loss for Clemson. Lots to get to here, but I guess let's first start off with just how can you be Dabo Swinney and still be this young and this vibrant and this all-knowing and walk into a season with that roster? That did not look like a roster that resembled anything between 2014 and 2021. Maybe it all comes down to these quarterbacks. Maybe it really is Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, but I don't think it's that simplistic. They had absolutely nasty, large human beings that ran really fast on defense, great skill guys. They've got good running backs, but, man, that's about it. I mean, the Cade Klubnik kid is not a virtuoso. He's not a prodigy. Their wide receivers, Antonio Williams is a freshman All-American last year, but does not seem to be anybody that I would want to maybe set somebody on Florida State's starting roster to put in there. Just bizarre that, I don't know, they're in the weird maybe Jimbo phase where he was still getting 5 stars, but they apparently weren't 5-star caliber. Maybe he wasn't coaching them up enough. That did not look like a Clemson team that we have come to recognize over the last 8 years, right? That wasn't a fluke.
No, but neither did last year's team. Like last year's team, DJ
Uyunglele.
I think they started with Georgia Tech last year, and although the game ended up being not close,
right.
It was ugly.
Yeah.
It was ugly last year too. It started out ugly. It was kind of ugly for most of the year, and yet they were 10-1 at one point. Now I know they lost to South Carolina and then lost their bowl game. But they were 10-1. So I still think there's talent there. What should be alarming for Clemson fans is, look, because Duke's not 21 points better than Clemson, and they didn't outplay them by 21 points. Clemson fumbled the ball at the 1. They fumbled the ball at the 10. Their Sebastian Janikowski kid can't kick an extra point, apparently, and missed a 20-yard field goal and had another one blocked. They drove the ball all night. They had over 400 yards. They had 200 yards rushing and 200 yards passing. I think the stat was Dabo was 58-0 in his career at Clemson when they had 200 yards rushing and 200 yards passing until Monday night. The point being, they weren't blown off the field physically. But what should be alarming for Clemson fans is it wasn't fluky either. You know what I mean? Like it was an even game.
More of the same. It's more of the same of what they've looked like the last 2 years.
But they looked even to Duke. I thought Duke and Clemson looked like very evenly matched teams. Duke just got more breaks, or made more breaks, I guess. They forced fumbles and ran them back than Clemson did. But heck, Clemson's only touchdown came after a muff punt. So I think that all evened out. I just think that Clemson, they moved up and down the field. They didn't punt in the second half. It was just a weird game. They're not that bad. And I don't think Duke's that good. But on that night, it's all that matters. And again, the alarming part is Clemson, it used to be, if they played their C-plus game and Duke played an A-plus game or an A game, they'd still win by 3 touchdowns or 5 touchdowns. They couldn't stay on the field with Clemson 3 and 4 years ago. Well, now if Clemson doesn't play well, they can lose by 21 points to Duke. And let's extrapolate it a little bit. If Clemson doesn't play well in Death Valley in a couple weeks, they could lose by 5 touchdowns. I don't think they will. I think they will play well. I think that's going to be not an easy game. But that's where they are. That's where they have to play. They're going to have to play really well to beat Florida State. It used to be they could play poorly. See 2021. Okay. Not play very well and still beat Florida State. Those days are over because, yes, the roster has dipped considerably because their coach has been very stubborn about the transfer portal, about NIL. We'll see how this season plays out, and if it becomes a 8-4, 6-6 type season, well, that might be what Clemson fans need and are rooting for if it makes Dabo open his eyes to the ways of the world of college football moving forward. But yeah, man, I think when you watch that game as a Florida State fan, 2 things. One, your thought was, okay, that game in Death Valley is going to be much more manageable than we thought it was going to be. And you knew it was going to be manageable anyway. But now you're going to go in as a favorite. As long as you take care of business these next 2 weeks, you'll be favored in Death Valley, which will be crazy, but you will be. And then also, well, Duke's no pushover. And you got them in the season too. Like, you should beat them. You'll be favored to beat them. But they're not going to be, dare I say, they might be a problem. Aslan.
Okay.
Look, he could really coach defense. Yep. Those guys fly around to the ball, and they've apparently got a guy that Kuiper's projecting as a first-round quarterback.
Yep.
So they got some pieces. What they don't have probably, I'm guessing, is a lot of depth.
Right.
And by the time you play them in 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever it is, and teams that don't have a lot of depth start wilting, and that might be the real advantage you have. And I think they played Notre Dame and NC State right before you. But yeah, man, that was eye-opening. Again, I'm not ready to write off the Clemson dynasty like everybody else was and say it's all over and they're going to be horrible this year. It was one game, but that was very, very alarming.
Yeah, but as you said, man, it's been this way for like 2 years now, so it's crazy. And then Tom Luganbill pointed out on the telecast that he's a sideline reporter. He's like, gentlemen, I haven't seen any speed difference on the field tonight between Duke and Clemson. Like that's crazy. That's jarring. And I mean, the part about Dabo, and I mean, Georgia hasn't relied on the portal heavily. I don't think Ohio State has. Michigan hasn't. Alabama has not. At least not to the extent that Florida State has. But Florida State continues to have like a 60-30, 65-35 split on it.
Right.
So I don't even know if the portal would he's going to have to go heavy into the portal, man. Or would it be one piece? If they had Keon Coleman, do they win on Monday night and Florida State maybe only wins by one score? I mean, maybe that's all they need is one or two additional pieces because they got good running backs. I don't know if the quarterback should be okay. That offensive line seemed to be all right, but I just don't think they have that kind of talent on the perimeter at the receiver position. And that's just crazy to see Clemson not have that after year after year after year seemingly having that. So I just wonder how they're the ones that are seemingly getting burnt by not using the portal, but for some reason Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State and Michigan really haven't, but they're all right. So I wonder where the disconnect is there.
Well, I think Georgia and Alabama, what they've done is they haven't been completely stubborn about it. Like if you're looking at that Clemson team last night, why aren't you after Keon Coleman? Yeah. Like what did you think you had coming back that you didn't think a freshman quarterback could use a Keon Coleman or a Jaheim Bell? And I'm not saying maybe they were in on him, but Georgia mixes and matches. They don't do much, but 2 years ago when they won the national championship, they got Clemson's best corner in the transfer portal. Alabama last year, their running back was a Georgia Tech transfer. Yeah. They also got the kid from Ohio State.
Jameson Williams a few years ago.
Yeah. So they'll do it. They'll pick and choose. They don't have to do it much, but they will pick and choose. They're not above it.
Right.
And I think isn't Alabama is it their quarterback a transfer or are the guys in the race?
Milroe is, but yeah, Buckner came in from Notre Dame. Yeah, but that's the thing though. Like they pick and choose their one or two guys, and that makes them win 12, 13 games. I don't know if they were one player away from being a 12-win team right now, but maybe they are.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think they didn't replenish maybe the way they should have, but I do think that it's frankly, and look, man, he's won a ton of games and national championships. He's a Hall of Fame coach. It is straight up asinine and almost coaching malpractice to just say you're not going to go to the portal. It's crazy. Yeah. Like Dabo, you could go get anyone. Like anybody that's any good at a small, it's just crazy to say no. We're gonna develop the high school kids, and even if this 5-star talent, this all-American tackle from so and so wants to come play for us, no, we're good. I like my guys in the locker room. Okay, well then start enjoying losing to Duke, because that's the reality. Is you don't your margin for error when you're talking about when you're now dealing with a college football roster is really, really thin. If you're only going to rely on your own evaluation of high school players and developing high school players, especially when you keep losing coaches. Yeah. So you don't even know who's going to be developing these players because you keep losing assistants. Meanwhile, you could get a ready-made Keon Coleman who's you just like pop him out of the oven, throw him on the field, and he scores 3 touchdowns. But you're not willing to do that, or you think you're above that. It's just it's bizarre. It's good for Florida State in the short term. We'll see if this ends up being like the what finally opens his eyes up to what he has to do. Because it could happen, or he could remain stubborn and not do it. The whole scene on Monday night looked bizarre, man. Every time they showed him, he was by himself.
Yeah.
There was nobody around him. There was the one time it looked like he tried to high-five his quarterback, and the quarterback just ran right by him.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing seemed a little off. Yeah. It just seemed a little off. And again, it's one game, and I'm not going to put too much stock in it. I remember when Alabama lost in overtime to Ole Miss back in 2016, and Dan Wolken wrote that the Alabama dynasty was over. And here we are. What are they ranked this week, Aslan?
Third. Yeah.
They've fallen off a cliff. That was set. They've won like 3 national championships since that was written and produced multiple Heisman winners. So I'm not ready to – but obviously I know that this Clemson roster, that was not fluky. And last year wasn't fluky. Like, yeah, they beat Florida State, but they
that was the best game they played all year long.
It was, but they also – they had that 8-minute window, end of second quarter, beginning of third quarter, where they took control of the game.
Yeah.
But they weren't overwhelmingly better than Florida State.
No.
And I would certainly argue after watching these two teams play this weekend, again, we'll see it on the field in a few weeks, it's almost not comparable, the talent on the two rosters right now.
Nope.
And it's crazy that we've gotten there. But again, you got to go beat them on the field. I will say this too, what Monday night kind of proved to me or said to me is, like, if Florida State goes and beats Clemson on September 23rd in Death Valley, well, they're probably not going to play them again.
Yeah.
There's going to be somebody else in the ACC championship game besides Clemson, because they'll have 2 losses. Duke would have to lose 3 times for Clemson to overtake them. Louisville would have to lose twice. And Louisville Louisville looked really bad for a majority of that game, but they've got an easy schedule. North Carolina looked good. Like, there's a good chance. We've been talking all along that it would probably be a rematch in Charlotte. They'd probably play twice. Well, the way they looked on Monday night, combined with the way Florida State looked on Sunday night, I don't know that they would play each other again if Clemson can't beat them in a couple of weeks.
I also Monday night kind of not opened my eyes, because I've always been pounding this drum, but it's just I understand there's a piece of the puzzle, there's a piece of the pie when it comes to building success and maintaining success that does involve culture. But man, I bet, Dabo believes like all hell in his culture. That's why he doesn't want to go outside of his 4 walls to go get new guys to bring in and infuse talent into that roster. He believes and trusts in his process and his culture. But give me the dudes, man. If I have the choice between culture and dudes, I'm going to take the dudes. And I don't know how many dudes really Duke even has, but apparently enough to make a few more plays, several more plays than Clemson ultimately in that game on Monday. Last thing, Corey, the potential downside of this, of seeing Clemson maybe their dynasty possibly wrapping up here. You're not saying it. I'm maybe saying it. But
everybody wanted to say it on and I'm not, again, I get it. I get why they're saying it. I'm not saying people are stupid for it. I got to see more than one game where they just kept fumbling and shooting themselves in the foot in the 10-yard line. But again, I was not impressed with anything I saw from the quarterback. I thought the defense was good. Yeah. I think the defense is good. But if that offense continues to struggle, it'll be interesting to see how hard that defense plays the rest of the year. But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, just, one of my buddies called me up, my guy Noah, who actually helps voice the open of the show. And does Florida State have to go undefeated in November and December? I mean, ultimately, does Florida State need to go undefeated to make the playoff now with the way Clemson looked?
Well, look, no, they don't, but it would help. I think.
Wow,
look,
it would help to go undefeated. Love it.
If you lose at Clemson, I think because of what you did to LSU, I don't think it's going to be like, oh, Florida State's a fraud. I think it's going to be, wow, Clemson might be better than we thought. That's a great win for Dabo, and then you could get revenge in Charlotte. So if let's say Clemson goes 10-2 and one of their wins is against Florida State, well, they're going to be 9th in the country or 7th in the country when they play Florida State in Charlotte. And Florida State, if they win 11-1 with the loss to Clemson, would be around there too. So I do think you're still in contention for the playoff if you can beat Clemson again. If you beat the question is, if you beat Clemson and then lose at Pitt, and then who do you play in the championship game?
Like North Carolina,
that gives you the boost to get you back there.
That's the problem. That's the fear. Like, that's the fear right now, because you figured you and Clemson, one of you in the rematch in Charlotte, one of you is probably undefeated. The other one only has one loss. But it just doesn't seem I don't think Clemson's only going to have – I don't think that's going to be their only loss until December.
It certainly would be surprising if that's their only loss of the whole season, or they only have one more loss the rest of the way after the way they looked. It would be very, very surprising. But, yeah, probably – I know. I think – and I think, honestly, a lot of it has to do with what LSU ends up being.
Certainly.
You know, if LSU goes 10-2 and is ninth in the country, and their only other loss is by 6 to Alabama, and then you beat them by 28 points or 21 points, that's going to give you – that's a nice feather in the cap when it comes to Selection Sunday. But who knows, man? It's hard to know. We're getting way ahead of ourselves. Got Southern Miss this week, a bowl team from last year. I'm throwing it out there. I'm not assuming any wins. We don't do that on this show anymore. I want to enjoy the moment and just enjoy trying to get into 2-0 this week, Aslan. And I would say Florida State's won 7 in a row, which I guess is probably – wouldn't that be like the third longest winning streak in the country or second longest?
Somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah,
probably.
Good for them. We don't even talk about stuff like that. It's just automatic. They've won 7 games in a row. I mean, Georgia's won quite a bit more than that, but other than that, they've got to be in the top 5 in active winning streaks.
I'm just afraid that the ACC is almost like a group of 5 school to where, like, if you're going to get in, I mean, the ACC hasn't had a representative for a few years in the playoff because no one has gone undefeated or been 12-1, you know? But I just wonder, this conference seemingly here has only really had one power for like the last 6 years, and it's been Clemson. So as long as you fill that vacuum, but you need to be like that level of dominant that they were when they got into the playoff because – yeah, they with Deshaun they lost sometimes, right? I think
they lost to Clemson,
they lost to Pitt, they lost to Syracuse.
Yep.
But those teams still made the playoff because Florida State still wasn't horrible, and there was still some talent. You know, there's still a good game or two in there in their schedule, at least in the ACC. But right now, that really doesn't seem to be the case. So, since Trevor Lawrence left, they haven't. When Trevor Lawrence was there, they would go undefeated.
It's kind of weird, right? When they play Clemson, if both teams win their next 2 weeks, and they're both heavy favorites to do so, Clemson will probably be like 19th in the country. Florida State will be probably 3rd or 4th. So what's interesting about it is the only way you'll really get – but if you beat Clemson in Death Valley, well, then Clemson's unranked after that game. And maybe they'll never work their way back into – who knows? The only way you'll really get credit for beating Clemson is if you beat them in the championship game. Like, if they have a good enough season to – like, right now, I don't think in late September, if you beat them after the way they looked to start the month, anybody's going to give you really any credit at all. It's just going to be a horrible Clemson team. That you struggled to beat a Clemson team that Duke beat by 3 touchdowns. That'll be the narrative, I think. Now, if Clemson regroups, finds its footing, and gets itself back to Charlotte, and you can beat them there – well, whether you beat them in Death Valley or not, if you beat them in Charlotte, if they're a top 10, 12-ish team and you beat them there and they've ended up having a good season, that's when you can get a bump from them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so in that, obviously it's better to win all your games. So you want to win all your games. But if you lose to them and they end up having a good season and then you beat them in Charlotte and you're 12-1 with a win over a 10-3 Clemson team, that might be better for your chances than beating them in Death Valley and not seeing them again in Charlotte.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the longest active streaks right now.
Oh, you weren't even listening.
I was listening.
I did look in.
There's a bump, yeah.
Georgia has, it looks like 3 real transfers. They got a wide receiver from Mississippi State. They got Ra Thomas, which is a great name. Dominic Lovett, wide receiver from Mizzou, who I think was their leading receiver last year.
Yeah.
And then a DB, Tyke Smith from West Virginia. So, and the other guys, they have a kid from Tennessee, but he's a running back that wears number 41. I think he's probably a walk-on. There's an outside linebacker named Sam Shurtleff from Nebraska, who was probably a walk-on.
Really?
So that's what they do is they mix and match and just fill very specific needs.
Yeah, seemingly Dabo's not doing any of that. So
I know. That's what's so crazy about it.
It's totally crazy. All right, let's get back out to practice. Florida State practicing on Wednesday morning. We'll be out there. We'll have observations. I don't know if we'll have observations, but we'll definitely have a wrap-up of what's going on. We'll have footage from the early periods. We'll have interviews. with Coach Norvell and players. We'll also get Adam Fuller. We didn't really talk about Alex Atkins.
We should have. Yeah, let's do that for a second. Now that it's late anyway, we're talking already.
Yeah.
I thought he was really interesting about the offensive line. That their plan all along was to play those guys.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if I believe that. I think guys were compromised health-wise in that game, but I love you, Alex, so I'm not calling you a liar.
But I don't, man, maybe one of them was, but
Yeah.
Roddick and Dimitri came out and went back in. And, Roddick was on the field for the long Jaheim Bell touchdown. Dimitri came out for Keandre Jones, but then went into left guard for a while. It was just and they said it all along that they were going to play 8 guys, and they did.
Yeah.
And so, I wasn't sure how much I believed it. I thought maybe it was something performance-based, not injury-based. Like maybe they weren't getting what they wanted. They knew they wanted to run the ball more to start the second half, so they put Keandre Jones at right guard.
Yeah,
but either way, what a luxury.
That's
whether it's
crazy.
the truth or not.
Yeah.
If you're like, man, we're just not running the ball real well, we got to give Maurice some help. We got to be a little bit more physical at the point of attack. Let's get Maurice some help and put Keandre in there because he's a little bit bigger, whatever they think he is, stronger, more physical, whatever. Whatever the reason was, they did it, and they started running the ball a little bit better. So and also, Robert Scott only plays 13 snaps, and then Bless Harris comes in and wins ACC Lineman of the Week.
Oh, did he? Congrats,
Yeah.
Bless. Shout out.
So, Jordan and Keon all won their respective, ACC quarterback and ACC wide receiver of the week too. So, so Atkins saying that I thought was interesting. Talking about just Jordan being able to flush stuff quickly because he had such a bad stretch there for him, a horrible, ridiculous stretch. And then he ends up righting the ship almost immediately and doing what he does.
And it's crazy that there might be, and it's not like a bad thing, but that there was like maybe some sense of overconfidence played into maybe some of the stuff that Jordan was dealing with early on.
Yeah.
Like that's where he is at this. I mean, could you imagine telling him 2 years ago as we come upon that fateful anniversary that you mentioned at the top of the show that you were going to tell Jordan, like, yeah, you're going to beat number 5 LSU on a neutral site. You're going to look a little bit shaky early on, though, because you're going to be so overconfident that you can just do whatever you want. You can throw into crazy coverage and do some crazy, sandlot football stuff that's kind of been outside your comfort zone the year prior to that. He'd be like, sure, I guess. Let me go beat the Gamecocks at Jacksonville State real quick. Oh, wait, you're not going to start. Mackenzie Milton's going to start instead. We'll see in 2 years, though, bud.
But also, the fact that what he said, what I thought Atkins said that was on point too, was that live to play another down.
Yeah.
That's the message he was given to Jordan before the game, and then obviously after the game is live to play another down. Don't just throw it up for grabs on first down, or even if you're going to take a sack on third down at your own 2, that's better than almost throwing a crippling interception. I do think he's I think he obviously started doing that in the second half. And I think Atkins chalked it up to, number one, he is very good. He knows he's good. And when you know you're good and you know you can fit throws into tight windows and you're always wanting to make a play, it can be hard to dial that back after you've done it for so long. But you just got to be able to, you got to take what is there. You can't force it. That's what he said is Jordan in the second half, really after those 2 throws, kind of just calmed it down and looked more like himself. And he also said that, and I was wondering about this too, the Keon Coleman thing, jumping up and down and then pointing at the kid. I asked Atkins about that, and he's like, I don't think he was doing what it looks like he's doing.
Right,
and
yeah. Walk people through what the whole sort of viral clip there where apparently
So it's 14-7 late in the second quarter. It's that drive. They just converted. I think Travis just got a first down on a sneak. Coleman is on the opposite sideline of the Florida State sideline, and he's jumping up and down like ooh. It was almost like a kid in a class, like pick on me, pick me. I know the answer. Like jumping up and down, holding his hand up, and then pointing to the guy that was covering him. Like jumping up and then pointing to the guy that's covering him, which makes it look like he's saying, "Look who's on me, throw me the ball." Yeah. I don't know if he's doing that or not, but as I noticed, and as Atkins rightly pointed out, that play that he scores on, which is that next play, he's on the outside and they move him to the slot, and it's a whole different player that's covering him. So 24 is the kid he's pointing at. Like, ooh, look who's on me, pointing at him. But he slides to the inside, and number 8, the safety, is the one that tries to cover him in the end zone and fails to do so.
What is it? What's the whole man that shot Liberty Valance or whatever? Like when the legend, like print the legend or whatever.
Yeah. When what is it?
When the legend becomes fact.
Or the legend is better than the truth. Print the legend. Yeah, something like that. We screw that all up, guys. But
Sorry.
you know what we mean. We're not great at everything.
I love how Atkins was like totally dismissive of that. He's like, sounds
remember,
cool. Or go ahead and run with it. Fine, yeah.
Yeah. He's like, go ahead and run with it. But he's like, I haven't talked to him about it. And then he also said, obviously, Keon's really good. And he's a student in the game. Mm-hmm. But so I'm just looking at the Alabama roster real quick. Back to that, I forgot about Jalen Key. You remember him, the safety from Quincy?
From UAB, yeah.
Some UAB. He's there. Obviously, the kid from Notre Dame is there. I was just doing a quick rundown. They got some JUCO kids. So those are the 2 kids I see right away on their roster that are. And I don't know. I assume the Jalen Key kid started.
Yeah, let me see if I can look them up. I got PF. This is the time of the year where I always have a PFF tab and the game stat broadcast tab just on demand. But I'll have to.
They've got a Georgia transfer, so that's 3. They've got a UAB, Georgia, and Notre Dame transfer, as far as I can see.
Jalen Key did start 31 reps, graded out at 84.1.
Okay, all right.
But it was Middle Tennessee, so we won't get carried away. But yeah, 31 reps he played. He graded out at 84.1. His coverage was 89.2.
Was he the only guy in the portal that they really went after that they didn't get?
Seemingly, yeah. Oh, yeah, that they didn't. Yeah, I thought you were talking about safety. But no, overall, yeah, that's like the one guy that they circled and squared and weren't able to pull. And listen, man, he's a defensive back, and you go and God love Adam Fuller. Hopefully, we'll get there at some point. But if you want to be a defensive back and get to the next level, Nick Saban's hard to turn down. So.
Yes, he's got a pretty good track record. It looks like.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get out to practice. We'll speak to Coach Fuller. Don't tell him I said that about him, everybody. I love you, though, Adam. You know that. But we'll get to hear his thoughts. Is it too late to keep talking about the LSU game, Corey?
No.
I don't think it is.
We got one more. I think we got one more day, and then we turn our attention to the Golden Eagles, who have had it's a rich history with Florida State. One of the all-time a loss that cost Florida State a national championship was to Brett Favre 30. Wow, is that right? 34 years ago? Good night. 34 years ago. Yeah, so they lost to Brett Favre in '89 to open the season, and that cost them a national championship. And then they beat them in Odell Hagen's first bowl game, right?
Oh, yeah, in Hattiesburg.
Yep, that's right.
Cam Akers ran crazy against the
No, it wasn't Hattiesburg. It was
I'm sorry, Shreveport.
God, I wish it was Hattiesburg.
Hattiesburg's a cool little town, man.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I wish it was Hattiesburg.
Yeah, it was not. The Shreve. By the way, somebody from Orlando got upset when you said you'd rather have been in Shreveport than Orlando the other night. He's like, come on, give Orlando some respect.
Oh, I had to have been joking, right?
Yeah. But, I mean, it's still not a great stadium, though, guys.
No, the stadium is horrific. But understand, I did get to Orlando on Thursday for a Sunday night game.
You did.
So I like Orlando.
Clearly.
You got some stuff to do. We had a good time. I like the downtown area. Obviously, you got all the parks and everything, a ton of hotel. Yeah, Orlando's much better than Shreveport. That stadium, though, is very similar. That's what I was saying. I preferred the Shreveport Stadium because it was right next to the county fair, the state fair that has the pig on the roof of that shack. It just has a little more charm than the Citrus Bowl.
Oh, man. All right, that's a wrap for us. Jeff Cameron Show coming up 1 to 3 o'clock. Stay connected to warchant.com. We'll be out of practice. Footage, interviews. We'll have a summary of those interviews for subscribers over on warchant.com. So hang tight. We got more coming your way. He's Corey. I'm Aslan. Live show Thursday, 6 o'clock, Corey?
Sure. Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it.
Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.